Earlier today, Congressman James Comer, who is the chairman of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, well, they released a transcript of the interview with Devon Archer, who, of course, was the former business partner of Hunter Biden. And contrary to what the left would like you to believe, that testimony certainly was not a nothing burger. I've read certain portions of it myself. So what are the highlights or lowlights, depending on how you want to look at this thing? Well, joining me now to go through the interview is Eric Eggers. He's the vice president at the Government Accountability Institute. Eric, welcome to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Thanks, Jody. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much. Listen, I know you've been busy with all of this as well, but before we get in the actual testimony itself, let's kind of lay some groundwork. Tell us a little bit about Burisma Holdings and what we know of Hunter Biden's business dealings in general.
Sure. So, and that's an important place to start, but I think that there's even sort of like a larger perspective to have. So Devon Archer worked with Hunter Biden, and both were able to secure board seats for Burisma Holdings, which is a Ukrainian natural gas company. And we know that Hunter Biden was paid $83,000 a month or $1 million a year for that position. There's been a lot of questions about why Hunter Biden would be selected, and then why his business associate Devon Archer would be selected to be placed on the board of this seemingly random third world natural gas company. And it would be random unless you kind of look at the larger perspective. So right after Barack Obama won his second term as president, Joe Biden took a trip to China with Hunter Biden on Air Force Two. And shortly after that visit, Hunter Biden was able to secure in his new company that he founded with Devon Archer what would become a $1.5 billion private equity deal with the Chinese government. And it was the first of its kind that China had entered into. But this became the business model that the Bidens began pursuing. They would find in sort of these less well-known, less public, less transparent corners of the world business arrangements with people who are essentially trying to launder their reputation and curry favor with people at the highest levels of the United States government. And so that's exactly what the Burisma deal was. And then there became other things that it turns out that why Burisma wanted to cultivate a close relationship with the United States government, with the Obama administration specifically. They had certain things they wanted to get done, and those are among the things that Devon Archer talked about in his testimony.
Wow, that's stunning. So, I mean, it goes from China. It's just all over the place. So let's get into some of the aspects of the testimony itself from Devon Archer. Let's start off with the brand. We're hearing a lot about the brand. Just clearly lay out, what is the brand and what did Devon Archer have to say about it?
Right. So Devon Archer talked extensively about the fact that the Bidens are the brand. And they add value by connecting the brand with people who, again, want to launder their reputation by being associated with the son of the vice president of the United States. It's why I think the biggest bombshell that we have from Devon Archer's testimony, or among the biggest bombshell, the fact that Hunter Biden was able to, in the presence of his customers, put his father, Vice President Joe Biden, on the phone in upwards of 20 times. Like, that is the brand. So, I mean, and this, by the way, is not something that's unique to Hunter Biden. This is unique to the Bidens. We've reported at the Government Accountability Institute that in addition to the deal that Hunter Biden had with Burisma, in addition to the deal that he and Devon Archer had with the Chinese government, the Biden brothers have acquired and accumulated over $31 million in other business deals with entities that are connected to the Chinese military, specifically the Chinese espionage ring, the people that are trying to spy on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. So the brand is, in terms of the Bidens, they're trying to make as much money as possible with very little regard for how it looks or how it might impact United States national security interests. And oh, by the way, that's not just me saying it. You've had people come out from the United States government say, you know, China's our biggest threat, and anything we're doing business with should be examined. And the Bidens happen to be on the list of things that need to be examined. And so, yeah, so that is the brand. And if you're one of their business partners, you benefit from brand association, right? We remember, I'm sure some of your viewers may be familiar with this new startup golf entity that became popular a few months ago, maybe last year, the Live Golf Tournament. And the term sports washing was used because the Saudi National Fund was attempting to launder its reputation by partnering with professional golfers. That's essentially what people have done by partnering with the Bidens. They're laundering their reputation and associating themselves with the Biden brand.
And in fact, that was precisely the service that Hunter Biden brought to the table. He didn't know anything about the energy sector. He didn't know. It was not like he had earned the right to be on the board earning $83,000 a month. What he brought to the table was influence, the brand, his father. Let's talk about further the comment that I read that Archer said that Burisma actually would have gone out of business had the brand not been attached to it.
No, that's a key comment. You're wise to kind of seize on that. But just to your earlier comment, as far as Hunter Biden's lack of qualifications, that's also part of the brand. You got to remember, Hunter Biden's a guy that was appointed to the board of Amtrak, the rail company. And in the testimony that was given in the halls of Congress when giving his qualifications for why he should be added to the board of Amtrak, it was mentioned that as somebody who lived in Delaware, he'd ridden trains a lot. Like, that was what they read into the record. So Hunter Biden is not a guy who's used to earning his way to the table. He's admitted as much in terms of national television appearances. He's admitted he's struggled with substance abuse and other personal vices. And while I'm not here to condemn any of that, the point is this is a guy whose brand, and specifically his last name, is what gets him into places like this. So, so as far as what Hunter Biden has done and why Burisma would have gone out of business, per Devon Archer's testimony, is they were essentially a corrupt entity, and a prosecutor in Ukraine was giving them a heavily amount of scrutiny in terms of their conduct and might have put them out of business. And I think that's actually maybe the biggest takeaway for your viewers to kind of consider. We know that Devon Archer has said that they were asked by Burisma executives to get the prosecutor who was threatening to put them out of business fired. And then so Devon Archer, with Hunter Biden there, they said, okay, we need to go call D.C., and they left. Now, we don't know who they called in Washington, D.C., but we do know one person who lives in Washington, D.C., and who lived in Washington, D.C. at the time.
Eric, let's hold it right there. What a fascinating discussion we are having with Eric Eggers about the transcript that the House Oversight Committee released regarding Devon Archer's testimony. Incredible. I want us to continue that discussion now with my guest who joined me in the last segment, Eric Eggers, who's the Vice President at the Government Accountability Institute. Eric, thanks again for staying over, and I know you understand hard break. Sorry I had to step in the last little bit. But now that we're here, let's go on. We've covered a lot about the transcript. What else about this stood out to you that just kind of jumped off the page?
I think that the fact that the House Oversight Committee has been able to pursue this, and that I think they're very serious about their work. I know not everyone that's on the committee is as serious, and I think Democrats are quite honestly grandstanding and mentioning the fact that Donald Trump was president when some of these interactions happened, more than asking hard questions about the nature of Joe Biden's involvement in Hunter Biden's business. And so I think there's some room to improve there. But I do think you have to remember, Jody, we reported at the Government Accountability Institute about some of these business transactions and about Devon Archer specifically all the way back in 2018 in a book called Secret Empires. And we actually sent a researcher to Devon Archer's trial and watched the judge sort of issue a not guilty verdict, and then saw that verdict be vacated by Oversight. So we've been paying attention to this for a long time. And so I applaud the fact that House Oversight members are now taking this very seriously. They're getting bank accounts. They're talking to witnesses. And so I think I'm encouraged for anybody that's paid attention to the idea of government corruption, as we have done, and I know as you have done, that I think the fact that they're talking to the right people is a signal of positive things to come.
Great point. I want to play a clip for you and get your reaction to it. The Democrats, you're talking about them and them just kind of grandstanding with this, but they're trying to defend President Biden, saying that all the phone calls that he had with Hunter during these business meetings were nothing more than other just saying hello to his son. But Devon had an interview just yesterday with Tucker Carlson, and I'd like to play this clip and get your thoughts on it. Clip 5, please.
To be, completely clear on the calls. I don't know if it was an orchestrated call in or not. It certainly was powerful, though, because if you're sitting with a foreign business person and you hear the vice president's voice, that's prize enough. I mean, that's pretty impactful stuff for anyone.
All right, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you couldn't say it any better. Whether the nature of the conversation was casual or not, the point is it was impactful and it got done what needed to get done with the business people they were trying to curry favor with and ultimately trying to get them to pay them. So, it's funny you say, oh, these are casual niceties, like the kind of talk you might hear on the golf course about the weather. Well, guess what else gets done on the golf course? A lot of business, and so I think people decide to do business with people because they're comfortable with them and they're impressed by the network. As you pointed out earlier, Jody, that's essentially what the Bidens were selling. They're selling their network. That's what Hunter Biden and Devon Archer were selling specifically. I mean, Devon Archer was not a guy who turned down an internship at Lloyd's of London. This is not a highly coveted asset on Wall Street. He's a guy who later would be convicted of defrauding a tribe in Oklahoma. So it's not like he had elite professional skills to bring to the table. What he had to bring to the table was he'd raised money for John Kerry, who, by the way, John Kerry's stepson had previously worked in business with Hunter Biden and Devon Archer. And even John Kerry's stepson, Christopher Hines, was so turned off by some of the nature of the business they were doing, he left. So I think you heard it exactly right from Devon Archer that what they were doing mattered.
All right. So, not only were they selling themselves, selling their influence, they were selling America out. I mean, how do you describe this president any other way than being compromised?
That's a great point, and it's, I think, the most important point. When something happens like the Chinese spy balloon floating across the country, and people wonder why was it allowed to float over the entire West Coast to East Coast route that it took, and why was it never shot down, even though we now know that it flew over military industrial areas and it was able to gain intelligence on our stuff. We know that this is China's game plan. And so I think by cultivating these relationships with people that matter, it's called soft power. And so I think there's no other way to put it. But yeah, you have to wonder, if China was aggressive, would we make a move in America's interest, or does Joe Biden have other reasons to maybe take it easy on China?
Well, it's a frightening thing to consider all of this, Eric, and your insight that you've brought to the table today has been tremendous. We're grateful. What do you think, or what do you hope is going to come out of this whole investigation? We've got about a minute left.
Sure. Thanks, Jody. What I hope is that the House Oversight Committee will continue to do its work, that the remaining 6 bank accounts, they will be able to get those records, that the financial records that the IRS whistleblowers wanted to look at and it did look at, that those will be able to be brought together as well. And there's a phone number that's linked to Joe Biden that I think maybe those phone records can be triangulated. We match up those with things like the letter that he wrote to Devon Archer and correspond that with the timing of them launching their Chinese business enterprises. And we get to finally get the real picture of just how shady the Biden business dealings are.
Well, this is absolutely fascinating. And you look at the indictments of former President Trump coming out at just the same week, the day after all of this starts unfolding. You have to scratch your head about it all. Eric Eggers, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for all the work that you at the Government Accountability Institute do as well. Thanks for joining us this evening.